The glass didn't just break. It announced me. 200 faces turned. Music froze. I am 73, and my new daughter-in-law shoved me hard enough to send me to the floor. The cut on my palm stung, but it wasn't the pain that hurt. It was my son's silence, phones lifted like a forest of small, cold eyes. Someone laughed. Someone gasped. My handkerchief, my mentor's, slipped from my fingers and landed in the mess of champagne and crystal. For a heartbeat, I wanted to crawl away and disappear. Then I saw my reflection in a silver spoon. Not a victim, just a woman who forgot her strength. So listen closely. They wanted a show. They wanted me small, quiet, grateful. Tonight I will give them a finale instead. Not rage, not fists, paper, signatures, witnesses. The kind of justice that doesn't need to shout. Keep watching. The glass isn't the only thing that's about to crack. The planners called it a 5-course dinner. To me, it was a long table I wasn't invited to sit near. They put me in the last row, back by the service doors where the waiters whispered and the cold air from the kitchen crept under the tablecloth. From my chair, the head table looked like a stage far away. Michael and Jessica sat in the bright center, all light and silver. I lifted my water glass to steady my hands and smiled at anyone who happened to look my way. Not many did. I told myself to enjoy the beauty, the white flowers like clouds, the tiny lights in the ceiling, the piano tinkling something soft. I tried to let it wash over me, the way I used to let radio hymns fill our little house on Saturday nights when Michael was small. Back then, his feet didn't reach the floor when he ate. He would swing them under the chair and ask for one more spoon of beans. "One day, Mama," he used to say, "we'll eat in a fancy place." Funny how some wishes come true in ways you don't expect. A waiter set down a plate I couldn't quite name. The food was arranged like a painting, all dots and swirls. I thanked him anyway. He was a nice boy with tired eyes, the kind that knows what it means to stand on sore feet. I folded the linen napkin onto my lap and, without thinking, touched the small handkerchief in my purse. My mentor's handwork, tiny golden flowers stitched by candlelight. I brought it for one purpose, to press into Jessica's hand and say, "Blessings on your home." Simple, dignified, the way my people do things. From my corner, I watched the small things that tell the truth. The way Jessica touched Michael's sleeve and then looked past me. The way she laughed, wide and bright, when her friends arrived, then tucked her smile away when I came near. "Oh, there you are," she said once, the way people say when a stray leaf blows in. "Hope you're comfortable back here." Her voice was sweet like a glass of tea with too much sugar. You drink it, but it coats your tongue. Michael kept busy with tasks, checking the seating, speaking to an uncle he barely knew, nodding at the DJ. He moved like a man swimming, head just above water, trying not to notice the shore he was ignoring. When he did look my way, it was quick, as if the light might catch him and hold him still. I know that look. I've seen it on boys who grew into men before they were ready and forgot to take their mothers with them. Between courses, I let my mind wander where the room could not follow. Back to a thrift store navy dress I ironed at dawn, to the mornings of patching knees, to his first baseball cap, bent brim and proud eyes. Back to nights when my hands smelled of bleach and starch, and I counted tips by lamplight so he could have a textbook that cost more than my week's pay. I remembered selling my wedding ring to cover his last semester. "Someday you'll thank me," I whispered to a table like this one long ago. The table didn't answer, but the diploma did. The toasts began, stories about summer trips, school pranks, promises of forever. Laughter bubbled like champagne. When they mentioned family, heads turned toward the head table, as if family lived only in the brightest place. I sat straighter. Family also lived in the last row, I wanted to say. Family lived in scrubbed hands and saved coins. Family lived in a woman's back that never learned to bend the wrong way. I slipped the handkerchief out and laid it over my fingers, feeling the raised thread. My mentor used to say, "When you give a blessing, give a piece of your history with it. It reminds the house what it stands on." I had carried these stitches across decades. They had held as I held. Tonight, they would be my gift. I waited for the right moment, the lull between claps, the breath after a joke lands. I pushed my chair back, smoothed my dress, and gathered my courage the way I've gathered bread dough 1,000 times. Firm hands, steady heart. I could see Michael lift his head, search for me, his eyes softening for a second that felt like sunlight. I rose with the handkerchief in my palm and began the slow walk toward the light, toward my son, toward the woman who would be my daughter if she let me. I had only one sentence in my mouth and all my love behind it. I stood to give my blessing, and someone decided I didn't belong. The shove didn't feel like hands. It felt like a verdict. 1 second I was lifting the handkerchief. The next, my feet slipped on polished marble and the room tilted like a stage trap door. I reached for the air and found nothing. Glass sang around me as the side table caught my hip. Then the crash, plates, crystal, cutlery, an orchestra of breaking cold rushed up through my dress. Champagne spread like a golden stain across navy blue. Tiny shards glittered like bad stars. I tasted metal and perfume. Somewhere far away, the piano kept playing 2 wrong notes in a row before it stopped. For a long breath, no one moved. 200 people, and not a single hand under my elbow. Chairs squeaked. A throat cleared. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Someone else lifted a phone. Then more phones rose, one after another, the way candles rise in church, only colder. My son's face was pale, eyes wide, body rooted. "Mom," he said, but the word had no feet. I pressed my palms to the floor to push up and felt the sting. Thin cuts, nothing serious, just enough to remind me I was still here. The embroidered handkerchief lay a few feet away, wet and trampled, its golden flowers dulled. Jessica smoothed her dress like a curtain and said to the nearest waiter, "Please clean this mess." That was the word. Mess. I stood by myself. I have practice. I've been standing by myself most of my life. My legs shook, but they held. I looked at the faces nearest to me, the ones the camera phones would capture first. Shock, pity, a few tight mouths that enjoyed the spectacle more than they should. I memorized them the way I used to memorize prices at the market. Somewhere inside, a quiet door closed. Another one opened. I walked. Out past the flowers. Past the long tables. Past the last row that had been my island. Outside, the night air smelled like wet pavement and roses. I didn't cry at first. I just breathed, counting to 10 the way I taught Michael when he was little and angry at the world. "Ma'am? Emily?" I turned. A young waiter jogged toward me, tie crooked, hair damp with effort. I knew his face. Tyler, the polite one who refilled my water without being asked. I'm sorry," he said, voice careful, as if words might break too. "You should see this." He held out his phone. His hands were shaking. On the screen, there I was in terrible clarity, raising the handkerchief, the shove, the fall, the stillness, the phones. But Tyler didn't show me. He slid the time bar back and froze the frame on the crowd. "Look at them," he said softly. "Look at their faces." He pinched to zoom, an older neighbor with her mouth open, fury under her lipstick. Mr. Johnson from the hardware store, jaw tight, eyes flashing. Jessica's cousin, not smiling, not clapping, just staring like she'd seen enough. In the reflection of a glass, you could even catch Michael's profile. Small, afraid, Still, they're witnesses, Tyler said. Not just watchers. The word landed like a tool in my hand. Useful. Solid. He swiped again. Another angle from another guest. The shove looked worse from here, so clear you could count the fingers. The audio caught Jessica's voice. You ruined my wedding. It caught the waiters moving with brooms while I sat on the floor. It caught my son saying, Mom, sit down, like I was a child. I felt the heat rise at the back of my neck, then cool into something steadier. My breathing slowed. The handkerchief in my purse pressed against my palm. I had grabbed it without knowing. I thought of my mentor's voice. When they try to make you small, stand tall in the truth, not in the noise. Tyler, I said, will you send me those videos? Yes, ma'am. He typed fast, sent the files, then hesitated. People are already sharing them in the neighborhood chat. This isn't right, what they did. Folks are angry, I nodded. Good. The word surprised me with how steady it sounded. If they wanted an audience, I said, meeting his eyes, they'll have one for the truth. He offered to call me a cab. I said I could walk. The night helped. It brushed the sticky perfume from my hair and the shame from my skin. By the time I reached my porch light, my hands had stopped trembling. I set my purse on the table, washed the champagne from my wrists, and pressed a clean towel to the small cuts. They smarted less than pride, more than glass deserves. I sat in my chair, the one by the window, and replayed the video once, then twice, then not at all. I didn't need to see it a third time. The picture was already framed in my mind, and it belonged to me now. That's when I heard it. A soft, firm knock. 3 even taps. Not a neighbor's gossip knock. Not troubles pounding. I stood, smoothed my dress, and went to the door. I opened the door on the chain. A woman in a gray suit stood under my porch light, rain freckles on her sleeves, a leather briefcase in her hand. Mrs. Harrison? She said, voice calm and respectful. I'm Rebecca Clark. I'm an elder defense attorney. Tyler sent me the video. She held up her phone, then lowered it. I'm sorry for what happened. I came because tonight matters. I looked past her to the quiet street. No one else. No cameras. Just the hum of the porch bulb. I don't have money for lawyers, I said through the gap. I'm not here to bill you, she answered. I'm here to protect you. Something in her eyes was steady, the way a good chair is steady. I slid the chain free and let her in. She noticed the small things, washed cups drying, my dress still damp at the hem, the folded handkerchief by the sink. She didn't pity me. She treated me like a person who had a decision to make. Let's sit, she said softly. I'll keep this simple. No legal talk you don't need. We sat at my kitchen table. She opened the briefcase, pulled out a thin folder and a yellow pad. First, she said, ticking points with her pen, what happened to you tonight is not family drama. It's physical assault. You also suffered public humiliation. There are witnesses in video. That matters, I nodded. My hands were still for once. Second, she continued, about your home. Whose name is on the deed? Mine, I said. I bought it 15 years ago. Paid it off slow. She smiled a little. Then hear this plain. If the deed is in your name only, it is your property only. Your son has no automatic right to it while you are alive. Marriage does not change that. Promises at a table do not change that. Feelings do not change that. The words settled in my chest like warm stones. Third, she said, if Michael and Jessica move in after the honeymoon and receive mail here, it gets harder to remove them quickly. Not impossible, but slower and messier. Tonight, before that happens, you have options that are clean and strong. What options? I asked. She drew a simple box house on the pad and wrote 2 phrases. Keep living here and protect from misuse. One way, she said, tapping the first phrase, is to keep the deed, set strict boundaries, and be ready to call police or file orders if they harass you. It's your house. You can do that, she tapped the second phrase. Another way is to place the house with a trusted elder protection foundation we work with. You keep a lifetime right to live here. No one can force you out. But the title moves out of reach of anyone who might try to claim it or bully you for it. In plain words, you stay. Their hands can't grab. Would I lose my home? I asked. No, she said. You keep the right to live here for life. Written in ink, recorded. Utilities and normal bills stay the same. The difference is safety. If they try to move in or make threats, there's nothing here for them to take. I looked at the handkerchief. Gold flowers caught the kitchen light. Why now? I asked. Because timing is the tool, she said. Tonight, before they establish residence, we can make changes fast. I have a notary on call. I have the forms. We can file an emergency record electronically so the registry shows the change before dawn. We can also prepare a simple police-backed notice if needed. My breath slowed. The knot in my chest began to loosen. Not because I stopped loving my son, but because I remembered I could love myself too. Will this shame him? I asked. I don't want to be cruel. I want to be safe. This isn't revenge, she said. It's a boundary. You tried love without a boundary tonight. They answered with a shove and silence. Now you answer with paper and witnesses. I thought of the moment on the floor. The phones in the air, Tyler's quiet voice. They're witnesses, not just watchers. Rebecca slid a single-page checklist across the table. If you choose this path, we sign here, here, and here. I call the notary. We record the transfer and your lifetime right. I draft a formal notice in case they show up later. And you go to bed knowing the house will greet only those who treat you with respect. I touched the pen. My hand didn't shake. Mrs. Harrison, Rebecca said, standing, already dialing. I can have the notary at your door in 40 minutes. She met my eyes, certain, kind. We can do it now, before they move in. Rebecca moved like a nurse in an emergency room, calm, fast, exact. My quiet kitchen became a war room. She cleared the table of dish towels and coupons, set down her briefcase and laid out neat stacks, forms with blank lines, yellow sticky notes pointing where my name would go, a small stamp pad, and a black pen heavy as a promise. She put her phone on speaker. Mr. Peterson, thank you for taking a late call. Yes, urgent elder protection. Address is on the text. We'll have IDs and documents ready. I wiped the table again even though it was already clean. Habit. Nerves. She looked up and smiled. You're doing great, she said, like we were teammates. We'll keep this plain and simple. She wrote 2 headings on her pad and spoke each aloud. A, where the title goes. We transfer ownership of the house to Dignity House Foundation, a local nonprofit that protects seniors from family abuse and asset pressure. They hold the title. They cannot sell or move you. Their job is to shield, not to profit. She wrote the next heading. B, what you keep forever. We record your lifetime right to live here, also called a life estate, but we'll just say right to live here for life. It means you stay in your home. No one can force you out. You can have guests. You can lock your door. You can water your plants and cook your meals and sleep in your own bed until the last day of your life. This right is recorded with the county. It is stronger than someone's opinion, stronger than a tantrum at a wedding, I breathed out. The words fit in my hands. They didn't slip around like legal talk sometimes does. She checked her watch. Notary is 15 minutes out. Let's gather what we need. I brought my ID, the deed, the last tax bill, and the little file of papers I keep in the second drawer, the drawer where old women store both proof and prayers. While she took photos for the secure upload, I went to my room and pinned the embroidered handkerchief over my heart. I didn't stab the pin through the fabric. I looped it so the cloth wouldn't tear. My mentor taught me you don't damage the thing that blesses you. I looked in the mirror. The gold flowers caught the lamplight like small stars. I stood a little taller. Back in the kitchen, Rebecca slid a short letter across to me. This confirms your lifetime residency in the simplest words. Read it out loud if you like. I did. I, Emily Harrison, will live in my home at 245 Main Street for the rest of my natural life. No person may remove me, limit my use, or disturb my peace in this home. This right is protected by law and recorded with the county. Good, she said. That's the heart of it. The doorbell rang. 3 steady chimes. Mr. Peterson entered smelling faintly of rain and paper. Trim suit, kind eyes, no hurry, no fuss. He showed me his notary card, shook my hand the way men used to, and set down a small case with a seal and a stamp. We'll go step by step, he said, opening his book. You sign. I witness and seal. The system receives the filing tonight. Rebecca walked me through each page in plain words before I touched a pen. The transfer document sent the title to Dignity House Foundation. The next page carved my lifetime right into the same record. A 2-line notice authorized Rebecca to deliver copies to any person who tried to claim space or control here. There was even a simple letter to the foundation. I am staying. I am safe. Please accept this home to guard it for me. Any questions? Rebecca asked. 2, I said. Do I still pay my light bill? Yes. And can I still hang laundry on the line if the sun is good? Yes, she said, smiling. It's still your home. Something in me eased like a knot letting go. I thought of Michael's small shoes swinging under a kitchen chair, of the promise he once made that this would always be my house. Promises from people change. Paper with a seal does not. Mr. Peterson inked his stamp. The clock hummed. The porch light buzzed. Somewhere outside, a dog barked once and then was quiet again. Rebecca slid the final page toward me and placed the pen where my fingers already waited. Her voice was soft but sure. Sign here, and you'll never be disposable again. The first signature took the longest, not because my hand shook. It didn't, but because I let myself feel every letter of my name. Emily. The way I used to write it on permission slips and school notes. The way I wrote it on loan papers when the bank manager didn't think I'd pay. I signed and Mr. Peterson pressed his seal. A firm click. Red ink bloomed like a small sunrise on the page. Then the next signature. And the next, we moved steady, page by page. Rebecca read each line in plain words before I touched the pen. This moves the title. Sign, click, red seal. This records your right to live here for life. Sign, click, red seal. The clock on the wall hummed its slow song. My kitchen light threw a soft circle on the table like a stage where nobody could shove me again. At 11:32 p.m., Mr. Peterson lifted his head. Timestamp confirms the filing, he said, tapping his tablet. The county received it. It's official. I hadn't meant to cry. But the breath I'd been holding since the fall finally left me, and tears came quiet and clean. Not the hot kind that burn. The kind that wash relief arrived first. It slid over my shoulders like a shawl, warm, earned, familiar. I pictured my morning coffee in this same kitchen, no one telling me where I can sit, no one measuring my worth by how useful I am to their plans. I could almost smell it, strong and honest, the way I like it. Then grief took a chair. It sat across from me with my son's face. The boy who slept with a fever on my chest. The teenager who promised to take care of me when I was old. The man who watched me on the floor and said, "Mom, sit down," like I was the problem to be put away. I felt the ache of losing not a house, but the picture of a son I had carried for decades. Pictures fade when the truth steps into better light, Rebecca noticed. She didn't rush me. She poured tap water into my favorite glass with the chipped rim and slid it over. Both feelings can live here, she said softly. Safety and sorrow. You don't have to pick one. Mr. Peterson signed his last line, closed his book, and snapped his case shut. You did the hard part, he said with a gentle pride. The rest is paper traveling where it needs to go. He shook my hand and let himself out into the rain, leaving the smell of wet wool and a thin trail of night air that made the kitchen feel new. Rebecca checked her list, then dialed. Officer Miller? It's Rebecca Clark. We're filing the notice tonight. Are you able to meet us? She looked at me, eyebrows raised. I nodded. My heart beat a little faster, not from fear, but from purpose finding its feet. She turned the phone so I could hear the warm baritone on the other end. Yes, ma'am, he said. I can be there in 20. I'll draft the formal notification with the recorded details. Address, timestamp, registry number. When she hung up, we prepared a small packet. Certified copies with the fresh red seals, a simple cover letter in plain English, my lifetime residency statement. Rebecca added a one-page notice in bold type. Do not enter or claim residency. Owner retains lifetime right to occupy. Any violation will be reported. I went to my room and smoothed my blouse. The handkerchief still sat over my heart, gold flowers catching the light. I pressed my palm to it and whispered, "Thank you," to the woman who taught me how to stitch and stand. A knock sounded, two quick, one firm. Rebecca opened the door to a tall man in a navy jacket, badge catching the porch light. He removed his cap before stepping inside. Officer Miller, he said, offering his hand. His grip was steady, respectful. He read the packet, jotted the registry number, and slid the notice into a thick envelope. We'll do this properly, he said. No raised voices. Just facts. I picked up my purse. It felt lighter than it had in years. Rebecca met my eyes. Ready? I looked once around my kitchen, the little room that had seen so much of our life. Then I squared my shoulders. We deliver it tonight. Tyler waited by the glass doors like a lighthouse, small, steady, exactly where we needed him. He caught my eye, gave a quick nod, and pushed the handle. The ballroom air spilled out. Sweet flowers, tired perfume, the last fizz of a long party. We stepped in the way Rebecca had planned. Tyler first to clear a path. Me at the center, Rebecca on my right with the briefcase. Officer Miller behind us in his navy jacket, cap tucked under his arm. We didn't hurry. We didn't sneak. We walked like people with a reason. Conversations thinned in waves. A laugh cut itself short. The violinist slid off a note and stopped. The DJ's hand floated over the fader, then eased the music down until you could hear shoes on carpet and the soft roll of a bus tub on its little wheels. 200 heads turned the way wheat turns when the wind decides. I felt the same marble under my shoes, but it didn't tilt now. It held. Phones rose again, neat and shiny, the same small cold eyes from before. Only this time I wasn't the accident they were waiting to devour. I was the person they had come unknowingly to hear. Faces came into focus as we passed. Mr. Johnson from the hardware store, mouth set like a good clamp. My neighbor with fury hiding under her lipstick. Jessica's cousin, watching like a woman who has decided not to lie to herself anymore. Tyler walked us through the aisle that wasn't there earlier, but opened now, the way doors open when you stop asking permission. He led us to the dance floor, empty, polished, bright as a stage. Rebecca took half a step closer to me, a quiet anchor. Officer Miller positioned himself where everyone could see his badge without him saying a word. I could feel my pulse in my wrists, quick but even. The handkerchief lay warm over my heart. I rested my palm on it for one breath, then let my hand fall to my side. My voice was ready. It was the same voice that read bedtime stories over the hiss of a space heater. The same voice that told Foreman I needed another shift. The same voice that taught a little boy to apologize, mean it, and do better. Michael stood at the bar, a glass in his hand he didn't lift. He looked tired, older than morning, smaller than the suit they tailored for him. When our eyes met, his mouth opened, then closed. Jessica had the bouquet again. It shook a little. Her smile didn't. The DJ, bless him, read the room and set a handheld mic on the edge of the stage like he was offering water to someone who'd walked a long distance. I stepped forward. He reached out first, gentle, respectful, and placed the microphone in my hand. It had the weight of something that could be misused. I held it like something that could be used right. "Ma'am, would you—" He started, unsure. "Yes," I said. My voice carried without the mic, but I turned it on anyway, so the back row would hear what the front row had learned to ignore. A few people shifted, embarrassed for me in advance, the way people get embarrassed when a person they underestimated refuses to disappear. I looked at them the way I look at weeds I've already decided to pull. No anger, just certainty. Rebecca stood steady at my side. I felt her presence the way you feel the edge of a good table. There if you need to put weight on it. Officer Miller glanced at the envelope, then at me, ready for his turn. Tyler took a small step back and lifted his chin as if to say, "It's yours now." I lifted the microphone. The room settled into the kind of silence that knows what's coming will be remembered. "Good evening," I said, and my voice was clear as cut glass. I let it reach the back wall, the last table, the doorway where I used to be an afterthought. I'm the groom's mother. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "Earlier tonight," I said, I stood to give a blessing. I lifted the handkerchief so the gold stitches caught the light. I was pushed to the floor. 200 people saw it. Many recorded it. My son did not help me up. No drama, just facts laid flat like bread on a board. I came to say two things. First, I will not live small in my own life. Second, the house at 245 Main Street will not be a reward for cruelty. I nodded to Rebecca. She stepped forward, opened her briefcase, and held up a clear sleeve with red-sealed copies inside. "Originals on me," she said, steady and plain. "Transfer recorded at 23:32 hours. Title now with Dignity House Foundation. Mrs. Harrison retains the right to live there for life. That right is recorded. Certified copies available." Murmurs moved through the room like wind through leaves. Officer Miller took his place beside her, unfolded a thick envelope, and read from the notice in a voice that carried without strain. Formal notification to Michael Harrison and Jessica Harrison. Property, 245 Main Street. Registry number, 2025-09-21-2332-DH. Title holder, Dignity House Foundation. Life residency reserved to Emily Harrison. Effective immediately. Any attempt to enter, occupy, claim residency, intimidate, or harass will be documented and may result in removal or charges. He lowered the page, not unkind. "This is an official notice." For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then Jessica's laugh cracked like thin ice. "You can't do that," she said, too bright. "That house was always the plan. Michael told me—" Her voice tripped, then jumped to a higher rail. "She's confused. She's old. This is elder abuse from some charity scam and a fake lawyer. Someone call security." Rebecca didn't take the bait. She slid a second document against the light so the seals flashed, then returned it to the sleeve. "Bar number is on file. You're welcome to verify," she said smoothly. "Tonight we are only serving notice." Jessica's bouquet shook. "Michael, say something," she hissed. Fix this. Right now. Michael left the bar, moving slowly like a man crossing a river he can't judge the depth of. He stopped a few feet from me, hands open, eyes red. "Mom," he said softly, voice close to breaking. "Please, not here. Let's talk in private. We'll figure it out. You didn't have to do it like this." I looked at my son, the boy I raised, the man I hoped for, the witness who chose to watch. I kept my tone gentle because truth doesn't need volume to be strong. "Michael," I said, "private talks end when public humiliation begins." His mouth closed. He swallowed hard. Someone in the back whispered, "Amen," the way church ladies do when a sermon lands. Jessica stepped toward me, finger up, eyes hot. "You are ruining our first night," she said, each word sharp. "You made a scene at my wedding. Now you're stealing our home? You're jealous. That's what this is." I let her words pass through me like smoke that finds no cloth to cling to. "This is not jealousy," I said. "This is a boundary." She turned to Officer Miller. "Arrest her," she snapped. "She can't just announce things." "I'm not here to arrest anyone, ma'am," he said, calm as an iron gate. "I'm here to deliver notice." Rebecca placed a small stack of certified copies on the edge of the head table, then stepped back. "These are for your records," she told them. "No need to sign tonight. You are informed." The room shifted. Older guests nodded, lips pressed in approval. A cousin looked at the floor. Mr. Johnson began a slow clap he didn't finish, like he knew this was not a moment for noise but for learning. Michael reached for me again, voice a whisper meant only for us. "Mom, please." I kept my eyes on his, soft but steady. "Private talks end when public humiliation begins." For a breath, the room held itself still, like a held note. Then the sound changed. Mr. Johnson from the hardware store brought his broad hands together once, twice. The clap was slow, respectful, not a cheer but a verdict. We saw. We remember. Others followed. Older women with wedding rings worn thin, men with shoulders that knew work. Not loud, not gloating. Just the sound a community makes when it recognizes something true. Miss Baker, my neighbor of 20 years, stepped to the edge of the circle. Her cane tapped the floor once for quiet. "I raised 3 boys," she said, voice steady as good timber. "And not one of them would keep his seat while his mother lay on the floor. That was shameful." She turned her eyes to Jessica without malice, only measure. "And you, child, there are ways to set boundaries that don't involve pushing a woman old enough to be your grandmother." A stir of agreement moved like a tide. From the bride's side, a young woman in a simple dress slipped forward, Sarah, the cousin whose face I'd seen in the videos, the one who didn't look away. Her hands trembled a little, but her chin didn't. "Miss Harrison," she said to me, and the miss felt like a small gift. "I'm sorry for what my cousin did. It doesn't excuse anything, but some of us weren't raised to think kindness looked like weakness. Tonight you taught us the difference." She turned to Jessica, eyes clear. "Cousin, I love you, but this was cruel." Jessica's smile cracked. She looked left and right for cover and found fewer friendly faces than she expected. That is how power flips, quietly, then suddenly. Near the back, the church ladies, hats and pearls and sensible shoes, stood together like a choir. One of them lifted her palm. "Respect is not old-fashioned," she said. "It's oxygen. Families don't breathe right without it." Another added, "A home is built with hands that scrub and save. You don't take those hands for granted." Rebecca didn't speak. She didn't need to. She stood still, letting the room teach itself. Uncle Robert, my late husband's brother, shouldered through the circle with the careful force of a man who has something hard to say and wants to say it well. He stopped beside Michael, put a hand on his shoulder, and looked him in the eyes the way older men used to teach younger men without a lot of words. "Your father?" he said, voice low but carrying. "Would be ashamed to see you sit while your mama fell. He'd be ashamed to hear you say, 'Sit down,' instead of 'Are you hurt?' You think this is about a house. It isn't. It's about the roof a mother holds up with her back. Son, you dropped your corner of the roof tonight." Michael bowed his head. The room made space for that kind of pain. I felt my own grief move again, softer now, more honest. A waiter I didn't know, older than Tyler, hair gone to salt, cleared his throat. "I've worked weddings 30 years, he said. "I've seen fights over flowers and frosting. I never saw a mother pushed like that. This," he nodded at Rebecca's documents, at Officer Miller's envelope, at the handkerchief over my heart, "is the best thing I've seen." It's a line in the right place. Applause rose again, still measured, still kind. Not for my cleverness. For the boundary itself. I lifted the mic once more, feeling the weight of every eye, every phone, every story these people would take home to their own tables. I wasn't preaching. I was planting something. Let this be a lesson to every child here. We stepped out into the night like we were leaving a theater after the last scene, only lighter. The air smelled of damp pavement and roses. Somewhere a sprinkler hissed, stitching water into a dark lawn. Tyler held the door as if he were guarding something precious, then gave me a small salute that made me smile. "Thank you," I told him. "For what you did in there?" he said. "No, ma'am." "Thank you." Rebecca called us a cab, but we didn't rush. Officer Miller stood a respectful distance away, phone to his ear, speaking in that patient tone people use when the next steps are already in motion. The ballroom lights glowed softer now, like candles after prayer. I touched the handkerchief over my heart and felt its small warmth answer back. The ride home was quiet. Streets I've walked for 30 years slid by like pages I know by heart. Mr. Patel's store, the bus stop where Michael forgot his lunch in 5th grade, the maple that drops leaves the size of plates every October. I thought of my son at 8, swinging his legs under the table. At 18, holding a diploma like it was a sunrise. Memory is faithful, even when people aren't. My phone vibrated in my purse. Then again, then it wouldn't stop. We were still 2 blocks from my house when the first message popped up. A neighbor's name and 3 words. "We saw. Proud." Then Miss Baker's daughter. A photo of her mother pointing at a TV with me on it. Someone's shaky video already recut. Titles floating at the bottom. Grandma sets a boundary. Another ping. The church ladies group chat. Heart emojis. Praying hands. A voice note. "Child, you made us sit up straighter." By the time we pulled up to my porch, the clip had sprouted a life of its own. Tyler had sent the best angle first. Then it jumped. A cousin texted from 3 neighborhoods over. "It's on my feed." A nurse I used to work with wrote, "Watching this at break room. We cried, then cheered." A teenager from the block I barely knew posted a comment with fire icons and something that made me laugh out loud. "This is how you main character at 73. Rebecca smiled when she heard me laugh. "Good kind of viral," she said. "The kind that disinfects." Inside, the house felt different. Not bigger, truer. I set my purse on the table, turned on the lamp with the chipped shade, and let the quiet settle. My legs ached, but the ache felt like distance covered, not damage done. "Try to sleep," Rebecca said at the door. "Call me in the morning. I'll file the follow-ups. You're safe." "Safe," I repeated, tasting the word. It fit. When the door closed, the silence wasn't empty. It was earned. I made tea the way I always do. Kettle, mug, spoon, the tiny clink that marks a home at peace. Then I sat with two truths set side by side like family photos. I grieved the boy I raised. I protected the woman I am. The grief didn't shout. It sat and listened. It let me tell the whole story. From the shoes I patched to the shove I survived to the pen that wrote my name into my own future. It let me admit the quiet parts, that I still wanted my son to knock on my door with humbler eyes, that I would not open it to disrespect again. Pings kept coming. Softer now, an aunt, a neighbor, a woman I had never met. My daughter-in-law talks over me at every meal. My son brings his girl here and they act like I'm furniture. You gave me an idea. I answered a few with simple lines. You deserve respect. Boundaries are love with a backbone. Then I put the phone face down and watched the steam lift from my mug like a blessing that finally remembered my address. Near midnight, Tyler texted one last time, a screenshot, views ticking up, comments like small lights. He added, "They're calling you the porch light, Grandma." I smiled. A porch light is not a siren or a spotlight. It's an invitation with rules. Welcome, but wipe your feet. I washed my face, pressed the handkerchief flat on the table to dry, and stood at the window. The ballroom lights across town dimmed to specks, then vanished. Somewhere, people would keep talking. Tomorrow there would be dishes and laundry and a plant that always forgets to be watered unless I remind it. Ordinary things, faithful as sunrise. I turned off my porch light and left one lamp glowing in the hall. My house rested around me like a good hand around a bird. Gentle, sure. I felt the bruise at my hip and the steadiness in my spine, and I knew this much. Tomorrow won't hurt the same. Morning smelled like victory, fresh coffee and clean air through the kitchen window. The bruises spoke when I bent, but softly, like old friends who meant well. I poured the first cup, the way I always do. 2 spoons of sugar, a small swirl of milk, steam lifting like a prayer that finally knows where to land. The phone blinked on the counter. Messages from names I knew and names I didn't. I turned it face down and took a slow sip. Peace first, people second. On the second sip, the doorbell rang. 2 short, 1 polite. Miss Baker stood on the porch in her Sunday coat, cane planted, lipstick neat. Behind her, 2 church ladies I'd seen for years but never really met. Mrs. Alvarez with the perfect bun, and Sister Ruth with the smile that could break a fever. "Child," Miss Baker said, pushing past the word old like it was a chair in the wrong place. "We came to hug you before gossip tries to wear the same dress as truth." I laughed and opened the door wider. We sat at my table, the same table that held red seals last night, now holding mugs and a plate of sweet biscuits Sister Ruth produced from her bottomless purse. The kitchen filled with that human sound houses crave. Women talking, keys clinking, small silences that don't bruise. My daughter-in-law rolls her eyes when I correct her, Mrs. Alvarez confessed, eyes on her hands. I tell myself to ignore it. Then I go home and cry in the laundry room so the men don't see. Sister Ruth patted her wrist. "I let my boy keep me on a porch last Christmas," she said softly. "He had space in the living room, but his wife said it was too much energy for me." She smiled without heat. I didn't know I was noise. They told me their stories like laying out quilts, each square a small grief stitched to the next. No shouting, just truth with its coat off. The next knock brought Sarah, the bride's cousin, with a woman who moved like history, her grandmother. The old woman wore pearls gone buttery with time and held herself straight as a yardstick. Sarah carried a paper bag of pastries like a white flag. "Miss Harrison," Sarah said, voice steady, "we came to apologize. I can't return last night to you. but I can tell you were right." The grandmother nodded, eyes clear as winter sky. "My mother taught me a house stands on respect," she said. "We've been letting soft words cover hard ugliness. No more." We stood in my small living room where Michael's school pictures still hung. A boy grinning with 2 missing teeth, a teenager trying to tame a cowlick, a man in a suit he could not yet fill. The grandmother faced the frames and shook her head once, sorrow without drama. "When a son forgets the hands that lifted him," she said, "he forgets his own spine." We drank more coffee. We sorted small truths from big ones. We made a list, simple, plain. Do not excuse humiliation as just stress. Boundaries spoken calmly are not disrespect. If you're pushed in public, you may answer in public. Save receipts, dates, words, witnesses. When you say enough, say it with your back straight. At noon, Mr. Johnson knocked with a bag of nails and a new porch light. "Brighter bulb, same warmth," he said. He fixed the flicker with 3 neat turns and a twist. The light came on strong, washing my steps in honest gold. The women clapped like a small choir. We laughed at our own cheering. Between visits, I washed last night's cup, pressed the handkerchief flat, and pinned it back over my heart. The stain had lightened. The thread still shone. Things worth keeping usually outlast the mess that tries to mark them. By afternoon, the house had heard more courage than some churches on a holiday. Messages kept arriving. Nieces, neighbors, a nurse at the clinic playing my clip for an aunt who needed a push to leave a bad situation. Not my fame, not my story, just a door opening in other houses because I opened one in mine. Before they left, Miss Baker tapped her cane on my threshold, once, twice. "Let them talk," she said. "We'll live." I walked them out and stood on my small steps, the new light bright over our heads even in daylight. I looked at the path up to my door, the place shoes scuff, the place people learn how to enter. I thought of last night, of marble and microphones, of signatures and silence breaking like old ice. I thought of my son, his eyes, his smallness next to the size of what he'd done, and I let the grief sit beside the relief again without arguing. Then I said it, so the bricks could hear, so my bones would remember the sound. Respect begins at the door you refuse to be stepped on. Rebecca arrived just after lunch, hair pulled back, sleeves rolled once like she meant to work and not perform. She set her briefcase on the same kitchen table that had learned the weight of red seals and poured herself a glass of water without ceremony. As if our house had already decided she belonged on the side of the people who fix things. "Quick check," she said, opening the case. Plain words. Simple steps. She laid out 3 neat stacks. "Stack 1, copies," she said. "Certified duplicates of everything we signed, plus digital files on this flash drive. 1 set lives here in your drawer. 1 goes in a safe place with a friend you trust. 1 stays with me. If anyone questions your right to be here, you hold up paper, not anger. Stack 2, boundaries." She slid a single-page letter across the table in large type. "Do not enter without invitation. All contact by text only. You'll tape this on the inside of your door. If Michael or Jessica come by, you don't open to arguments. You read this through the door and you text me. If they pound, we log it. If they shout, we log it. Paper keeps time. Feelings lose track." Stack 3, calm routine. She smiled at my face, which said I didn't expect legal help to include breakfast. "You keep doing ordinary things on purpose." Plants watered. Curtains opened. "Tea at 4. People in crisis forget to live. We don't let your body think it's still on a ballroom floor." She handed me a small spiral notebook with the first page already dated. "Write only facts in here. Who came, what was said, what time, no essays. It's your memory's assistant, nothing more." I tucked the flash drive in the ceramic sugar jar where nobody but me ever looks. We filed the copies where paid bills sleep. She watched me do it, not because she doubted me, but because good teachers watch the lesson stick. What about more? I asked, meaning punishments and courtrooms and words that taste like metal. If they cross your boundary, we respond, she said. If they don't, we live. You don't have to swing at every shadow to prove you're strong. I nodded. The kettle clicked. I poured tea for us both, and the kitchen took a long, satisfied breath. While we drank, I unpinned the handkerchief from my blouse and set it in a bowl of warm, soapy water. The champagne stain lifted in slow halos, gold thread winking through the suds like small planets. I rinsed it gently and laid it on a white towel in the light. Stains faded. Stitches held. That felt like a sermon even I could sit through. Rebecca finished her tea and walked the rooms with me once, not as a prowler, but as a planner. Locks are good, she said. Windows latch. Porch light works better than most church committees. At the door, she added, If you need a small camera for the porch, I'll send Tyler to set it up. I smiled. He'll call it a mission. He'll call it Tuesday, she said, and we both laughed. At the threshold, she took my hand. One more thing. If your son comes alone and humble, you can speak outside, in daylight, with a chair between you and the door. If he comes with fury or with her, you do not speak. You are not a courtroom for people who won't honor the judge. After she left, the house felt like a chest that closes cleanly, hinges oiled, latch sure. I taped the boundary notice on the inside of the door, slid the notebook into the drawer beside a roll of stamps and a pack of birthday candles, and watered the stubborn plant in the window until the soil darkened like good news. The handkerchief dried on the towel, bright again. I pinned it back where it belongs, not as armor now, but as truth. I stood at the mirror a long minute. The woman looking back had the same lines, the same hair, the same hands. Only the posture had changed. Less apology, more home. I thought of Michael, the boy, the man, the space between them where I lived for years, and felt the old ache stir. I let it be. I set a chair for grief, but I didn't set a place at my table for disrespect. When the porch light clicked on against the late afternoon, I said what the walls already knew. I won't chase love where dignity must die. Morning puts a soft thumbprint on my kitchen window, the kind that makes green things wake up. I fill the watering can and talk to the plants like I always have, soft, ordinary words that teach a room how to breathe. The spider plant forgives me for the week I forgot it. The basil leans toward the light like a curious child. I trim the dead leaves the way you trim old habits, gently, but for good. The porch light still glows from last night, steady even in daylight. I leave it on like a promise with manners. Welcome, but wipe your feet. It isn't a beacon for anyone who wants to take. It's a seat saved for people who know how to sit. I wipe the counter. I fold the towel. I smooth the handkerchief and pin it back. Not like armor now. More like a heartbeat you can see. The stain has faded to a memory. The threads hold like truth holds when you let it. A knock. Two quick, then one playful. I know that rhythm already. Tyler stands on the porch with a paper bag of groceries and a grin that tries to behave and fails. Delivery, he says, lifting the bag like it weighs pride. You didn't have to, I tell him. I wanted to, he says. Also, Sister Ruth sent a note. If the boy forgets the eggs, send him back. He rolls his eyes and laughs. I laugh too, the kind that starts in your belly and surprises your mouth. It feels like a door opening from the inside. We unpack together. He puts fruit in the bowl, heavy and bright. I hand him a jar to find a place for, then watch him put it in the wrong cabinet with the confidence of a teenager who thinks shelves move when he asks. Not that one, I say. He blushes. I'm learning your map. You're doing just fine. I give him a cookie from the tin I keep for guests, and for days when guests are thin on the ground. He takes one, then another, pretending not to, and we pretend with him. We sit for a minute, the quiet kind that doesn't press. He looks around like a person trying to memorize the shape of safety. The video, he says, half a question. I know. I answer. Let it run where it needs to, he nods. People are proud. Even my grandmother texted. She said, tell that lady I stood up taller pouring my tea. That's enough for me, I say. It is. He shows me how to check the small porch camera Rebecca sent, where the recordings go, what button to press if I want to save a moment for later. Only if you want, he adds. I like knowing how, I say, and mean it. When he leaves, the house doesn't feel empty. It feels full in the right way, like a bowl after bread has risen, not like a room after a party. I sweep the floor, not because it's dirty, but because it's mine. I open the window and let in air with good manners. Somewhere a child laughs in the street. Somewhere a woman sings to the radio like she means the harmony more than the lead. I take the small notebook Rebecca gave me and write nothing at all today except the weather and the time the sun hit the basil. Some days the record is the piece itself. Evening leans in. I make soup that tastes like Sundays. I set one extra bowl on the counter. Not for my son, not yet, just for the idea that good company may come at the right hour with the right heart. The porch light stays on, quiet and sure. Home, I've learned, is not a prize you win or a paper you frame. It's the place where respect and peace learn the steps to the same dance. It's the smell of coffee that waits without judgment and the click of a lock you control. It's a handkerchief pinned not to defend you from the world, but to remind the world who you are in it. I sit in my chair, look at the door that will open only to people who know how to enter, and let the night settle kindly around my shoulders. They didn't lose a house. They lost the right to my silence. Justice didn't make me harder. It made me whole. I still water the plants, fold the towels, pin the handkerchief where it belongs. The bruise faded. The boundary stayed. I didn't win a fight. I kept a home. Paper, witnesses, and a steady voice did what shouting never could. If you're standing where I stood, on the edge of being small, remember, you don't have to raise your hand, just your standard. Dignity is a doorframe. Walk through it upright. If this felt true, share the moment someone finally believed you. Subscribe for more fact-checked family sagas, and pass this to someone who needs a reminder. Dignity is a boundary you can draw today.